is Groundeffected. My name is your dad, and today's video is sponsored by Abe 3D. We are painting Chun-Li in a pile of water. Now you may be saying, this does not look like a clear, transparent piece of resin to you. Well, it won't until you have given it its tint and then put on the secret formula, which is literally just clear gloss spray paint. Whatever spray paint you can find, but a clear glossy one is ideal for this situation. And then you will have this. Now, as far as the model parts go, I have already obviously put a primer layer down. I use Citadel Black for that, and I am just waiting for her body to dry. The next thing that I'm going to focus on is the surfboard and the entire base, actually, to be totally fair. And this is because that is the most exciting part about this model for me. I really enjoy the concept of this model, and I think what Abe has done is a truly epically cool design. What I do want to do, however, is I want to add some detail to the surfboard because I feel like it can't just be plain white. So in the renders of it, the surfboard is white, and I've obviously matched that color with the surfboard that I've painted. Now, I don't want it to be just white. I have an idea, and I think the idea is to put on the bottom of it, at the very least, a design. And I think I'm going to do something obviously Street Fighter related. What I am going to do, however, is when I put the zenithal on that, I'm going to put it onto the skin tones as well. That way it'll be pretty much ready for me to add the actual skin tones on when I'm ready. Now, to do the design for the surfboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Procreate, and I'm going to either mix mash or find something on Google on my iPad, and I'm going to use that to just stick on the bottom of that so that I have a nice picture underneath my surfboard. So I've chosen to go with this one, and what I'm going to now do is I'm going to use an app called Photo Room, and I'm going to choose the photo, and I'm going to allow it to take out the background for me. That makes my life so much easier, and then I can save that, and then I don't even think I need to do much. I'm going to just print it in multiple sizes, and hopefully it fits the surfboard. So the first option that I printed was way too big. I mean, it might actually look pretty cool if it was wrapped a bit, but I'm not going to be even... I'm not interested in trying to do that. I'm going to reprint it a little bit smaller. After much careful deliberation, I've decided that this looks terrible because it's just not the right size. So what I'm going to do is I've imported a picture of the surfboard, and I'm going to draw the shape around it, and I'm going to just literally do a little cutout. And yeah, I'll lose the edges. I really like the edges of this, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not really major. It's going underneath the board anyway, but I just feel like it needs to be done. I'm going to cut one out and see if it fits. If it fits, I know the size and I can work towards that. And now that I have it actually fitting and it looks alright, I've also found a Stasi logo because I feel like that's probably what the brand of the board would be. And now all I need to do is print it on this water-based inkjet water transfer paper. Meow! So that is my decal, a large waste of paper because I just put it in the middle. Normally what I like to do with stuff like this is I will put the decals like up on the top corner and print, then cut them off, and then you can use a sheet quite a bit before you do that. So truth is I should have put that sideways. Never mind. Now I've just got to spray that with a matte varnish, something like this will do. And then you just leave that to dry, and as soon as it's dry, it's ready to be cut out and then stuck on. The reason for putting on this layer of varnish is because you need it to protect the ink that you have just stuck down onto the stuff. you got to be careful not to do too many layers or too thick of a layer, because if it's thick, you're going to have a thick stencil, and that thing's going to look weird on your surface, so don't do that. Now effectively all that's left to do, truthfully, is to get this wet and get it off of this backing sheet and onto here, and this is gonna be a nightmare. I'm gonna be totally honest, this is not gonna be easy. This video was sponsored by Abe3D. This is a Patreon over on the Patreon where you will get monthly rewards for joining up to their Patreon. From just as little as $10 a month, you will get 1 or 2 sculpts from Abe himself. These are usually quarter scale or 1/6 scale full character models, and that's not all, because he also has a bunch of guests that join on the Patreon every single month. That's 3 or 4 extra models on top of those 2 from him. It's just a great deal all round. Fantastic sculpts, and he works with some incredible sculptors too. Once you do join, you also get a 70% off of their previous models from Cult and Gumroad or their CG Trader. It's literally a no-brainer. Go check out in the description the link for Abe3D, and thank you to Abe for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to painting. Right, now that we're done with all that falafel, it's time to move on to painting the inside of that nice piece of water. And this doesn't have to actually be that detailed, because that water is going to distort a lot of what you see. However, it does have to have the colors in the right place, so I'm going to do some weird little wet blending over this base, and then I'm going to take a sponge and I'm literally going to cover up everything that I did. I don't know why I did this. This was an absolute waste of time, and if you've watched one of my previous videos, in fact a couple of my videos where I painted sand, I probably should have just done that technique, but I didn't do it, and here we are now using the airbrush to try and create some kind of depth in the wavy sand on the bottom of this beachy scene. Time to paint that little starfish, and I'm going to paint him pink. I'm going to use a dark pink at first and just sort of paint the color on him, but then you'll see I will wet blend with the lighter pink over the top. I use a darker color like Skeleton Horde, and I paint around the edge to make sure there is some separation between the starfish and the sand. I'm then going to use some white to zenithal highlight all the sea creatures that are inside of this base. I'm going to paint blue onto the little fishies, and because I have ADD or something else wrong with me, I couldn't help myself, but I gave this a gloss clear coat anyway right now. And my thinking behind this was it's going to be underwater, so I kind of painted everything under the water with the glass clear, and I'm not sure if I regret it, but it's a thing that I did, and we have no choice at this point anymore. The fish, I have no idea what kind of fish they are. I just painted them to look like Dory from Finding Nemo, because that's the only thing my brain went to, and that's pretty simple really. I painted some black stripes on them, a little bit of white highlights to make sure I could get the yellow nice and bright, and then clear coated them like I said I did with pretty much everything on this base. The sea turtle, however, was a slightly different approach. I painted him with a sort of sandy tone at first. I then came back in and sprayed some blue into his shadows, because I thought that maybe the water would be reflecting off of his skin and you would have this kind of like watery effect on him, and it'll be darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, obviously because light works the exact same way underwater as it does above water. On his body he has a lot of little spots of some kind. They probably need to be painted, and in my case I literally painted every single one of them one by one. Like I said, I don't have to be too careful though, because this is going to be distorted slightly by the resin that covers it on the outside. But I still had to be careful enough to not make it look like a 4-year-old got hold of my model and tried to paint it for me. Once I've got what we call a sketch essentially on this turtle, I can then come in with something like Skeleton Horde and start to tint areas that I want to make look more tinted. I don't really know how else to explain it, but if I just left it, it would look like I had painted each block kind of randomly and weirdly, and so I'm going to tint it. And also I tinted the rock as well. I'm not really worried about overspray in this point because the tint that I use for the rock is also blue, and again I tinted the rock blue because it's underwater, and in my mind that just makes sense. The rock would be reflecting blue as well as the turtle, and the fish are blue. Friggin' heck, everything is just blue underwater. How original of me. And like I said, I also clear coated everything, which I don't know if I'm happy about the gloss portion of this, but I'll show you what it looks like anyway. And I'm quite happy with how the turtle and his little pals came out. I just wish that I didn't actually gloss clear coat it. Now it's time for me to shove that piece of water onto the base. Okay, so it is a new day. That is because I went home yesterday and the sun went down and then it came up again, making it a new day. And I'm going to tell you what is the plan for today. Now, as I have finished the base, I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to start working on the model that goes on the base. And if you've watched my channel before, you would know that this is going to revolve around a bunch of steps that you have seen 125,000 times. Now, that may be a slight overreaction. However, I just want to mention that this particular model is going to have an extended version of its skin painting on my Patreon, whereby I will explain a couple more things. Just a couple more things, because I don't actually know what I'm going to explain, and I'll be totally honest, my Patreon videos are way looser than what these videos are, and these videos are pretty loose, just like your butt. Anyway, with that all being said, it's time to grab some white ink and start the zenithal, so we can put the pinkle, then the skin tones. So I just had an ADD thought break, and I figured I wanted to share it with you. I may have jumped the gun a little bit, on account of I've put this base, and it's honestly, to fit it in there is quite a tough click, because obviously tolerances are pretty tight, but she has legs that need to be inside the water. I'm such an idiot for not even thinking about that in the first place. Why did I do that? Anyway, back to Zenithal Prime highlighting the Monty Bigger. As I said, I'm going to be making a slightly different video for the skin tones. That's going to go for my Patreons, but you'll still get to see the rough way that I painted the skins, which is basically how I paint most of the skin tones in most of my videos. In this case, I used red and pinkle to make the underlying layers, and then these are the skin tones that I used for painting all of the tones on the skin, and I'm going to lay them down in a specific order, which is kind of exactly the order that I had them on the screen, to be fair. One of the only things that I could probably give you as a tip when you're painting skin tones, in fact with most things really, anything that you're kind of unsure of how much of that color you want on the part that you're painting, just thin your paints down. Like, thin them a lot, 50-50 if you can, even more sometimes, and you can slowly build up the color that you want. This also gives you really smooth gradations between your darks and your lights. As always, I use Orcish Dermis. I'm pretty sure if you've watched any of my videos, you would know that, and I use that to bring back some of the saturation, particularly after I've used all the skin tones, because it does tend to desaturate things quite a little bit. I also like to come back in with the highlight, and in this case, it is one of my brighter skin tones with a bit of a white highlight skin. It's not white, but it's kind of like an off-white. I mix that in, and I will mix that maybe 2 or 3 times just to get a really bright tone out of it on the highest highlights of everything. Now in many videos I've shown different ways of bringing a tan onto the skin tone, and in this case I'm using Resin Flesh Aid. And now that the skin tones are done, I can put my time into painting. Oh, that shouldn't look at that. Anyway, I can now put my time into painting the costume, and the costume is this light blue color. And I'm going to be totally honest, I do not have this color anywhere where it's in all of these million bazillions of colors that I have around. To be sure, I'm pretty sure of it. So this is the closest I could find, but I still don't think it's right. I'm going to go look at my actual colors in the shop and decide what I think. I want to be totally honest, as I walked up to the shelf, I immediately saw the color that I think it needs to be. It's not that one, because I was looking through the viewfinder. It's this one. It's the same color, but it's got more saturation in it. I need it. Now, not all paints and colors within paint ranges are created equal. Some of them will not cover unless you add a couple of layers. This is not you being a terrible painter. This is just how the paints are, and you just need to be patient sometimes. This blue that I had picked out was pretty close to a good layer after the first layer, but I did come back and paint a second one over the top. Now, obviously, I'm not going to show you all of that stuff in a video, because that would just make this already long video even way longer. I'm going to take some of this grey and I'm going to spray this into the shadows. It's like a bluey kind of grey, and I can spray that into the shadows, and if it goes slightly on the skin, it's not the end of the world, but I'm obviously trying not to get it on the skin. I'm going to then take a yellow and go around and paint all of the trimming on the outside of this costume. This had to be done twice over, and when that was done, it was time for me to figure out and fight how to get these legs attached to the friggin' hips. Oh my god, I can't believe that I didn't think about this at first. But either way, I ended up getting it done without too much of a hassle, and I think this would work out even if it had to be shipped, for example. I can still pull out the surfboard, and then everything can kind of be bundled together and still be safe to move around. So do it however you want to do it, but this is the way I chose to do it. I then took some black and painted her hair black because, well, Chun-Li has black hair apparently. I'm not gonna lie, I don't actually know this character that well because I didn't really play this game that much. I mean, I know who she is. It's a sponsored video, so of course I'm gonna paint the model as if I know who the friggin' heck the character is, but I don't. I just paint them because I enjoy painting, I like making these videos, and I was asked to paint this model, so it got fitted into the roster, and here we are doing it. She has cute little armbands. They are painted in the same blue and then highlighted with a bit of deck tan around the edge very carefully so that they're not too plain and boring looking. After I had done that, I can then start working on her buns, and I mean the ones that are attached to her head. I painted deck tan around them first, and then I could come back in with yellow and paint each little dot to make it look like it had been painted. I don't know what the reason is for that. They are yellow, so that's why I did it. I then dry brushed a little bit of brown into her hair, and this is just to make it so that the hair is not completely black, but kind of like maybe a really dark brown. I used some super glue to glue her buns in place, and they luckily have keys in order to make sure you don't put them in the wrong side, so it just works out nice and easy. Using some metallic medium, which basically is kind of like a pearl color, I painted her earrings, and they look nice and shiny when I was done with them. After that, I painted the caterpillars on her forehead, which most people would call eyebrows, and in this case they are quite solid eyebrows, so I painted them as such. She also has a very bright lipstick in the renders that Abe had made, and so I painted her lips very bright red. After I was done with that, I can take a bright skin tone color and paint over her nails. When that dries, I can go over the edge with a bit of deck tan to make it look like she is wearing a French nail manicure thing, whatever you call that. When I'm done with the hands, I'll put them aside and I can start working on the eyes. I paint black around the outside of the eyes. This is to frame the eyes and also paint the eye liner that goes around the eyes when you put makeup on. After I was done with that, I can paint in some highlight skin onto the inside of the eyes, and I can then start working on how the eyeball itself is actually going to look. And using Cygor Brown, I can paint in the iris, and the shape of the iris is obviously quite important. Lately, I feel like I've been making them too small, and I'm going to change that. I'm gonna just start making them big again. I was trying something, I don't know what it was that I was trying, but I made them too small in this one. They should have been a whole lot bigger, and people have mentioned it in previous videos. The eyes look a bit weird. Yeah, I get it. I was testing something. You don't like it, I don't like it. I will try to stop doing that in the future. However, this one was done and we're here, so we're gonna do it how I did it. When I'm done painting the irises and putting the black in, I use a white specular highlight. This is the only time in the entire painting process that I will use white. And when I'm done with that, I can glue her fringe on so that it is now stuck to her forehead, and I can start putting this model together. It's pretty easy at this point now, because all I have to do is put her arms in place and then place that top torso part of her body onto the bottom part and call this model done. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making this model. This was something slightly different. I really liked the sort of way that the base interacts with the model itself. The fact that it's clear and you can see through it, that's a really clever thing from a totally freaking epic maneuvers. The man was thinking out of the box, and I like that. Those are the kind of things I really enjoy working on, and hopefully you enjoyed watching this. If you are watching this on the toilet, make sure you wash your hands. Of course, when you're done, run through to your mum's bedroom and tell her, please go and subscribe. She needs to subscribe, her granny needs to subscribe, your granny needs to subscribe, your kids, the dog, your auntie. We're so close to 100,000. Let's just get there. I want the plaque. I want to show it to you in my pictures the next time I come on YouTube. It won't be the next time, but I want to get it. So help me please get it. Thank you for your great cooperation. Also, speaking of thank you, thanks to my Patreons, because of course they are the ones who support this absolute mental breakdown. Who knows what this thing is, but they support it, and I am truly and forevermore grateful for their support. If you want to support me over on Patreon, there is a link in the description. Of course, the link for the sponsor is in there too, if you want to paint this model for yourself. And we're at the part of the video where I get to tell you, if you didn't like anything you saw, I really don't care, and you should f**k off.